All right, we're going to break 1.5 into 3 parts. Part 1 we're going to do today. Part 2 we're going to do tomorrow. Part 3 on Friday. You'll have a web assign. I'll get it assigned this afternoon. That will be due Monday morning. But you will have everything you need. You'll have 3 different videos to refer to. You have time in class to ask questions so you can look over some things. But you guys are going to have your last quiz of the quarter. Quiz 3 is on Monday. It's only over this one section. But there's a lot to this one section, so it's important that you guys are following along, paying attention. Everybody's heads up, paying attention. All right, you guys with me? We're going to talk today about complex numbers. All right, complex number is an expression in the form A plus BI. All right, this is how all of your answers should be written. When you simplify, your answer should be written in A plus BI form. What that means is a complex number is made of a real part and an imaginary part. The real part and the imaginary part. Just by looking at this, guys, how can you tell which part is real and which part is imaginary? The one that doesn't have the eye is real. The one that has the eye is imaginary, right? Does that make sense? Every number that we talk about can be written as a complex number. You said 17. 17 is a real number. If I said 17 and I wanted to make it a complex number, I would say plus 0i. If you have an imaginary number, like 12i, you could write that as a complex number. The real part would just be 0. So every number can be expressed as a complex. This is just the matter of when you write your complex numbers, because we're going to have i's in our answer and we're going to have real parts in our answer. But you have to write it in standard form, A plus BI. If you don't, your answer is going to be wrong. All right, we're also going to talk about square roots. Like if I have the square root of 8, can I break that down? Okay, what would you break 8 into? 4 times 2, I agree. What's the square root of 4? 2, so you would bring that out in front. So when this simplifies, you get 2 root 2. All right, nothing new. So if I have the square root of negative 8, all right, very similar problem. The only thing that's different is there is a square root, there's a negative underneath that square root. Now, up until yesterday, if you had a negative underneath the square root, what did you answer? No solution, okay? That's not the case anymore. The square root of a negative 1, because when I pull this out, this is negative 1 times 4 times 2. The square root of negative 1 is your I. That's your imaginary. So when you break down the square root of negative 8, you bring out the 2, but you also bring out an I, root 2. Do you guys see the difference between a real square root of 8 and the imaginary square root of negative 8? There is a huge difference between real and imaginary. If you forget the I, it changes it from one thing to another. So it's very important if you have an imaginary number that has an I with it. Does that make sense? Another thing we're going to talk about when we multiply, 1.5 part 1. When we multiply, you'll have something times something, 2i plus 3i, something like that. It'll give you I squared. The value of I squared is negative 1. That you guys need to know that. Every time you see an I squared, that means multiply that number times negative 1. So let's look at this for a second. The value of I is negative 1, correct? It's the square root of negative 1. You guys agree with me on that? So what happens when you square one side of an equation? You have to do what? You got to square the other. Well, guys, what happens when you square a square root? It cancels out. That's why I squared equals negative 1. That's going to be really important to remember when we go through here and we start multiplying, okay? So if you're asked on web assign, if you're asked on a question, given the following complex number, you know it's complex because there's a real part and an imaginary part. Which is the real part? Which is the imaginary part? Well, it's really easy to see in the first 2 examples. The thing without the I is the real part. The thing with the I is the imaginary. It can get a little tricky when there isn't one of those. Do you see how in this third example it says 6i? There isn't a real part, so you would just say it was 0 if you were asked. In the last example, negative 7, there's no imaginary part. There's nothing there with an I, so you would just say that would be 0. All right, so just kind of pay attention to that. Look at these 3 questions. They all look very similar, don't they? Same two parentheses, but three different things are happening. What's happening in A? You're adding. What's happening in B? Subtracting. And what's happening here? Multiplying. Okay, three very different problems. We're going to do all three of them, and we're going to talk about how we get our answers and stuff like that. So A is 3 plus 5i plus 4 minus 2i. We're just adding. There's nothing for me to distribute. I don't have any negatives outside or anything like that. I have nothing to distribute. So this is just 3 plus 5i plus 4 minus 2i. Now, just like when we combine like terms, you keep x's with x's, y's with y's. Agreed? We're going to keep real with real and imaginary with imaginary. So circle the real parts. 3 is real and positive 4 is real. What's 3 plus 4? 7. And then your imaginary part. Positive 5i, negative 2i. What's 5i minus 2i? Plus 3i. And there's your answer. There's nothing more to combine. You can't combine anything else. It's just 7 is the real part, 3 is the imaginary part. God bless. Now B looks a little bit different because it's 3 plus 5i. Then there's that minus sign in the middle. 4 minus 2i. What does that minus sign tell me I need to do? I need to distribute a negative 1. Before you can start combining, you need to distribute that negative 1. So this problem is really 3 plus 5i minus 4. What's a negative 1 times a negative 2? Plus 2i. Now that you've distributed, now we're going to say real with real. Well, what's 3 minus 4? Negative 1. And what's positive 5i and a positive 2i? 7i. Plus 7i. What's up? Yes, it does matter. It has to be written. That's a good question. Look, it says in the form a plus bi. The real part has to come first. You guys will get points off if it doesn't. All right, now here's the last one that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to just do a bunch of examples. And some of them get really yucky, but we're going to go through all of them together so you guys are prepared for anything that you might see. 3 plus 5i times 4 minus 2i. I know this is times because the two parentheses are stuck together. Now, you guys need to get in the habit of doing what I'm going to do right now, just so you guys don't make any mistakes. But you should never, ever, ever have I squareds in your answer. Because what does I squared equal? Negative 1. So when you FOIL this, we're going to FOIL like normal. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times negative 2i. Well, 3 times negative 2 is minus 6. It has an I attached to it. 5i times 4 is plus 20i. And then 5i times negative 2 is negative 10 what? I squared. Guys, as soon as you see that I squared, you should cross it off. Remember, I squared is the same as multiplying by negative 1. So what is negative 10 times negative 1? If it actually becomes positive. Every time you see that I squared, you should cross it off and change the sign in front of that number. Because what you're doing is multiplying that number by a negative 1. If it's already negative, it'll become positive. If it's positive, it'll become negative. And then once you do that, that number becomes real. So now we can say, okay, well, 12 plus 10 is how much? 22. And then a negative 6i and a positive 20i. Positive 14i. And again, make sure you're written in standard form. The real part comes first and the imaginary part comes second. You guys see that? Yeah? All right, now we're just going to do a bunch of examples. They start off real easy. We're going to go through these together. They start off real simple, but I want you to just get in the habit of going through and answering the question to yourself. Real with real. Imaginary with imaginary. Combine like terms. So number 1, what's 7i minus 5i? 2i. That's it. Just 2i. And number 2, I have negative 3i plus 4i. 1i. Do I need to write the 1? No, you can if you want. That's fine. In number 3, guys, what can you combine? The 5 and the 2. What is 5 plus 2? 7. And then I have plus 7i. And number 4, what can I combine? Okay. 2 plus 2 is 4 plus I. You cannot stick the 4 and the I together. You're not multiplying them. And you can't combine them. So now the problems get a little bit more involved. Nothing you guys can't handle. But it does become a little daunting when you have so many minus signs. As soon as you see a minus sign with a parenthesis around it, you should put that little -1 and tell yourself, I've got to distribute. So this is really 8i minus 2. -1 times 3 is minus 3. And -1 times -5 is plus 5i. Agreed? Now, real goes with real. If I were you, I'd always combine the real ones first. So when you write your answer, the real is first. I have a -2 and a -3. What does that give me? -5. And then an 8i and a positive 5i. Plus 13i. There you go. The real part has to go first. In number 6, is there anything you need to distribute? No. So we could just combine real with real. What's -5 and 1? -4. And then what's 3i minus 7i? -4i. It's going to be really, really important, guys, that you pay attention to signs. And number 7, before you guys start combining stuff, what should we do with that negative sign? We should distribute it. Draw arrows. Remind yourself, 1 minus 2i minus 7 plus 3i. What's 1, which is real, minus 7? -6, good. And then -2i plus 3i is just plus I. Good. Anything to distribute number 8? Yeah. Draw the 1. Write it there so you see it. -1 minus 5i. Negative times negative is a plus 3. Negative times positive is minus 6i. Real with real. What's -1 plus 3? 2. And then what's -5i and a -6i? -11i. Good. Go down to 10. Is there anything to distribute? Nope. So just keep all the real stuff together. 3 plus 2 is 3 plus 2? 5 minus 4? 1. What's 1i minus 3i?
There's no 9.
Minus 2i, yeah? There's what? I'm going over to it, just so I don't make you guys dizzy. All right, now we're getting a little harder. Before I can just start putting real with real and imaginary with imaginary, what do I need to do with 9? I need to distribute 2 -1s. To this parenthesis and to this one. So go ahead, rewrite 6 minus 3i minus 3 minus 2i minus 4 minus 7i. You guys are going to have to be really, really careful. So real with real. Anything that's real, no i's with it. 6 minus 3 is what? Minus 4. -1, great. Then I have a -3i and a -2i. -5, right? -3 and -2. -5. And then minus 7i gives me -12i. Good. All right, we'll go to 11. Got that distribution right here in the middle. Go ahead and take care of it. So 4 plus 4i minus 6 minus I, minus 3, minus 6i. Real with real, guys. Everything that's real can go together. 4 minus 6 is how much? -2 minus 3. -5. This is exactly how you guys should do this on your test or quiz. Just take your time. Positive 4i minus 1i is 3i, correct? Minus 6i. Minus 3i. Good, very good. Just take your time. We have a 12? All right, lots to distribute here. Put that negative 1 out there and get taken care of. So you have negative 3 minus 2i. This becomes plus 6 plus 3i minus 3 plus 8i. So anything that's real can combine together. Negative 3, just kidding. Negative 3 and a 6 is what? 3. Minus 3. Just cancels out, 0. There you go. So negative 2 plus 3i is 1i plus 8i, 9i. If you were to write this in standard form, what was the real part? 0. Is that a positive 9i or a negative 9i? So you put a plus in the middle. Good. All right, now we're going to get to some multiplication, all right? We're going to use multiplication, and then we're going to be adding and subtracting. So we're going to kind of put it all together now. We're just going to finish these examples together. If I'm going to multiply this, guys, I have negative 12 what? I squared. As soon as you see I squared, what should you do? Cross it off and do what? Change the sign in front. Because this is 12i squared. This is the same thing as negative 12 times negative 1, which gives us our positive 12. So just get in the habit of every time you see an I squared attached to a number, cross it off and change the sign of the number that it's with. Every single time. 13, we're just going to distribute. 6 times negative 6, negative 36. 6 times 7i plus 42i. Can I combine anything else? No, that's it. The real part is negative 36. The imaginary part is 42. And you're done. Go ahead and skip 15. All right, look at 17. Let's distribute first. Keep that negative 5i just hanging out. So what's negative 7i times 3? Negative 21i, okay. What's negative 7i times negative 8? Well, negative times negative is a positive. 56i what? I squared. Guys, as soon as you see I squared, what do? Cross this off, change this to a negative 56. Now we're going to distribute again. Negative times a negative is a positive. So I have 5 times 21 is 105. I times I is I squared. What should I do? Cross that off. Make it negative 105. Good. And then negative 5i times 56. What's 56? You guys are going to have to do some addition and multiplication. What's 56 times 5? So negative 280i. Whenever you see that I squared, you cross it off.
Is it positive 280 since you the 56 is negative?
Is that negative? Yeah, it is. You're right. I'm sorry. Thank you. Good. Negative times a negative. Because we changed, it was plus 56 I squared, so we changed I squared to negative. All right, let's come over here and FOIL these two. We're just going to FOIL, combine like terms. What's negative 5 times 8? Negative 40. What's negative 5 times 8i? Negative 40i. What's negative 3 times 8? Negative 24i. And what's negative 3i and the positive 8i is negative 24 what? I squared. As soon as you guys see that I squared, what are we doing? Cross that off, make that a plus. So now combine real with real. Negative 40 plus 24. Negative 40 plus 24. Negative 16. And then a 40i and a negative 40i, negative 24i. Negative 64i. Got to be really, really careful with our signs. FOIL again on 18. What's 2 times 2? 4. Good. What's 2 times negative 2? Negative 4i. Good. 3i times 2 is plus 6i. 3i and negative 2i is minus 6i squared. Guys, as soon as you see I squared, what do? Cross it off, change the sign. I know I sound redundant. I want to. I want you guys to keep hearing that. Remember to do it. So now you can combine real and real. What's real? 4 plus 6 is 10. Negative 4i plus 6i. Good. Plus 2i. Good job. Very good. All right, we're going to finish up these last ones. We're going to get through them. Don't worry about 19. What does 20 say?
Well, can I see 17?
Sure. Hang on one sec. All right, what does 20 say? It says there's 2. There's 2 what? There's 2 7 minus 5 i's. That does not mean you go here and here and distribute. That's not what that means. That means I have 7 minus 5i times 7 minus 5i. So multiply. What is 7 times 7? 49. What's 7 times negative 5i? Negative 35i. Good. Negative 5i and 7? Negative 35i. Good job, guys. Negative 5i, negative 5i. Plus 25 I squared. Oh, I see I squared. What do? Cross it off, and I change. Negative 25. Positive becomes negative. Negative becomes positive. So now when you when you add your real terms, what's 49 minus 25? 24. And then I have negative 35i, negative 35i. Minus 70i. Good job, guys. You gotta be real careful with that. 22, there's a lot going on. It's all multiplication. If you want to multiply that negative 6i into the first parenthesis and then FOIL, that's fine. If you want to FOIL first and then distribute, doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and FOIL first. I'm going to leave negative 6i out in front, and then I'm going to FOIL. So negative 7 times negative 8 is positive 56. Negative 7 and negative I is plus 7i. 4 and negative 8 gives me negative 32i. And then 4i and negative I gives me negative 4i squared. As soon as I see that, what do? Cross that off, change the sign. So before I distribute that little negative 6i, I'm going to combine in here. I have 56, 56 plus 4 is what? 60. And then I have 7i minus 32i. Minus 25, good. And now we distribute. What's 6i? Negative 6i times 60. Negative 360i, good. Negative times a negative is a positive, so I have plus. What's 6 times 25?
125.
Is it 150? And then I have I times I is I squared. When I square that, what happens? Now, how do I write my answer here? I can't combine anything else. How do I write my answer? Negative 150 minus 360i. You must write with the real part first. Has to be in standard form. All right, let's come over here. Same kind of problem. Guys, this is tedious. I get that. We've got to practice this so we don't make mistakes. Let's go ahead and FOIL first. I'm going to keep 7i out in front here. So FOIL. What's negative 7 and negative 8? 56. Negative 7 and negative 8i. Plus 56i. Negative 3i, negative 8 is plus 24i. And negative 3i, negative 8i is plus 24i squared. What do I do with that I squared? Cross it off, make it a minus. Now real with real. What's 56 minus 24? How much? 32. What's 56i plus 24i? 80. Okay, so plus 80i. All right, so now again, we're going to distribute. What's 32 times 7? 224? 224i. And then 7i times 80?
560.
So plus 560 what? I squared. What is that really? Minus 560. So to rewrite in standard form, it'd be negative 560 plus 224i. Good. Good, good, good. All right, again. 8i, leave it out front, hanging out. Let's distribute. 7 times negative 2, negative 14. 7 times 6i, plus 42i. 3i and negative 2, negative 6i. 3i and 6i is plus 18i squared. What do? Cross, change the sign. So what's a negative 14 and a negative 18? 18 and 14. What is it? Negative 32. Okay, negative 32. 42i minus 6. Yep, plus 36i. And now what do we do with the 8i? We distribute. So we have 32 times 8. Negative 256i. And then 36 times 8. 288. So plus 288. Whoops, I forgot the 8. I squared. What do I do with I squared? Cross it off. Change the sign. What's my answer? Negative 288 minus 256i. Good. I know. Again, we're going to do it again. Negative 3i out in front. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times I is I. Negative 6i of 4, negative 24i. Negative 6i and I, negative 6i squared. I see I squared, what do? Cross it off, change the sign. So I still have my negative 3i out here. My real is 4 plus 6, which is 10. 1i minus 24i, 23i. What's your question? When Bobby gets back. Now what do? I have to distribute. So this becomes negative 30i. Negative times negative is a positive. What's 23 times 3? 65. 69, I mean. Sorry. 69i squared. So what does this really say? Negative 69 minus 30i. You guys are going to be so careful with signs. We're almost done. You guys are doing great. We're going to do these last few. 25 is going to go quick because all we're doing is foiling. What's 5 times negative 6? Negative 30. 5 times 7i plus 35i. Negative I and negative 6 plus 6i. Negative I and 7i minus 7i squared. What do? Cross it off. Change that sign. It becomes plus 7. Good. So negative 30 plus 7. Negative 23. And then what's 35i plus 6i? Plus 41i. Good. Good job, guys. Good job. God bless you. All right. All 26 is 2 distributing problems. And then you combine like terms. We're going to distribute negative 3 into this first parenthesis. So negative 3 times negative 4 is 12. Negative 3 times 5i is minus 15i. You guys agree? Okay, so now I have negative 2i times 5 gives me negative 10i. Negative 2i and a negative 3 gives me plus 6i squared. When I see I squared, what happens? Cross it off and do what? Change the sign. So 12 minus 6 is how much? 6. Negative 15i, negative 10i? Minus 25i. Good job. 28. Do I have anything to distribute? Huh? No? Okay, so let's just combine. Real with real. What's up?
Wait, can you remind us what it says?
Sure. What part?
Oh, I just, no, I
No, you got it, but do you have a question or no?
Sorry?
You're good?
Oh, no, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's look at 28. Real with real with real. What's real? 7 minus 4.
3.
Positive 3. Good. Negative 1i, negative 3i. Plus 8. So plus 4i. Great. All right, let's look at 27. Same thing. I have 2 distribution problems. I'm going to take negative 5i into 5. So I get negative 25i. Negative 5i and I is minus 5i squared. Before you even move on, guys, cross off that I squared, change that sign. So now I have negative 7i, and negative 7 gives me plus 49i. Negative 7 and a positive 6i gives me negative 42i what? Squared. Cross off that I squared, change that sign in front of 42. So look where your reals are, guys. They're not all in the middle. Don't just, I mean, they're not on the outsides. Don't just assume everything on the outside will combine and then everything on the inside. So let's go ahead and combine. 5 and 42 gives me how much? 47. Negative 25 and a positive 49 gives me what? How much? Plus 24i. Great job. Ozzy, what's your question? All right, 29. Look at 29, guys. All right, we have a negative 1 here that we have to distribute. And then we have to FOIL here. Get all of your multiplication out of the way. So I'm going to say 8. Negative 1 times 7 is minus 7. Negative 1 times negative 7 is plus 7i. Then I have minus 4. Now we need to FOIL. What's 4 times negative 5? Negative 20. What's 4 times I? Plus 4i. Negative 5i and negative 5 is plus 25i. Negative 5i and a positive I is minus 5i squared. What do we do with I squared? Cross it off, change the sign. Good. So real with real. What's 8 minus 7? 1 minus 4. Negative 3 minus 20. Negative 23. And then I have plus 5. Negative 18. Good. 7i plus 4i. 11i plus 25i. Plus 36i. Good job. All right, last one. 2 foiling problems, then you combine like terms. What is negative 6 times 5? Negative 30. Negative 6 times negative 8. Positive 48i. Negative 4i and 5 is minus 20i. Negative 4i, negative 8 is plus 32i squared. As soon as you see that I squared, cross that off and change that sign to negative. Now we continue. 1 times 4 is plus 4. 1 times 3i is plus 3i. Negative I and 4 is negative 4i. And negative I and 3i is minus 3i squared. As soon as you see that I squared, we cross it off and do what? Change the sign. So now you're just adding real with real, imaginary with imaginary. So negative 30. Negative 30 and a negative 32 is? Negative 62 plus 4? Plus 3. Negative 55. Good. What's 48 minus 20? Positive 48 minus 20. 28i plus 3? 31i minus 4. Minus 27i. All right, you guys, your quiz is on Monday. So everything that we go over every day for the next 3 days, you need to be practicing over the weekend. I will put your website up in just a little bit.
The homework is due.
It's due on Monday morning. I'll put it up in just a little bit. You guys can start working on it whenever.